Chapter 1, The Map of Lies. I love you, my wife. He said those words with conviction. To Alicia in Kyiv. To Marta in Lviv. To Diana in Odesa. 3 cities. 3 women. 3 homes. 1 man. Maxim Dovzhenko was a master of masks. He orchestrated his triple life with the precision of a watchmaker. Mondays to Wednesdays were for Alicia, the poised, ambitious architect in Kyiv. Thursdays and Fridays he spent with Marta, the traditional and kind-hearted schoolteacher in Lviv. Weekends belonged to Diana, the fierce business consultant in the heart of Odesa. They all wore identical rings. All bore his name on their marriage certificates, falsified in 2 cases, but official-looking enough to fool even the most thorough eye. Maxim knew the schedules. He kept 3 separate phones. He remembered anniversaries by color-coding his calendar and practiced changing accents depending on the city he was in. He believed love was a matter of performance. And he was the star of his own theater. Until one train delay changed everything. Alicia Pavlenko stood by the full-length window of their high-rise apartment in Kyiv, sipping her morning coffee and watching the Dnipro shimmer under the rising sun. The glass mug in her hand bore the inscription, "To my one and only, Maxim," etched in clean cursive. He had given it to her 2 years ago on what she thought was their 2nd wedding anniversary. Her studio was upstairs, filled with blueprints and miniature models. She was proud of her work, a woman in a field still dominated by men, and Maxim had always encouraged her. Or so she believed. He had left early that morning, as he always did on Wednesdays. Important client meeting in Lviv, he'd said, kissing her forehead. I'll be back Thursday night, sweetheart. She had smiled, as always. Trusted him, as always. But something was gnawing at her. Alicia wasn't paranoid by nature. If anything, she was too rational, grounded in structure, logic, and calculated risks. But for the past few months, something about Maxim felt distant. Rehearsed. He never used to double-check his bags. Never used to leave his phone charging in airplane mode. And then there were the missed calls at night. Battery died, he'd say. The meeting ran late. Still, she doubted her own instincts. Until the photo. It was a random Tuesday evening. She was browsing through an architecture page on social media when an ad popped up, "Relax in romantic Odesa. Couples weekend specials." A carousel of images rotated through spa resorts and beachside cafes. One image caught her eye, a blurry couple walking along the boardwalk. The man wore the same beige coat as Maxim's. The same haircut. Even the way he tilted his head while laughing looked too familiar. But the woman next to him wasn't her. She enlarged the image. The man was holding hands with the woman. Smiling. Kissing her temple. Her heartbeat quickened. She tried to dismiss it. Told herself she was overthinking. The man in the photo could be anyone. But the seed had been planted. The next day, she called his work number. No answer. She tried his mobile. Switched off. Later that night, she logged into his tablet. He had given her access freely in the past. Nothing suspicious appeared in his emails. But in the Notes app, she found something that didn't belong. A list of cities. With days. With initials. Monday through Wednesday, Kyiv, A.P. Thursday through Friday, Lviv, M.S. Saturday through Sunday, Odessa, D.K. Alicia Pavlenko. Marta S. Diana K. She stared at the screen, her blood freezing. Lviv always smelled like roasted coffee and old stories. Marta Sinkovic found comfort in its cobblestone streets and golden-lit courtyards, the way history hummed beneath her feet. She had met Maxim 5 years ago at the Christmas fair. He was visiting, on business, but stayed longer than expected. Their romance bloomed quickly, unexpectedly, the kind that left no room for questions. Within 6 months, they had exchanged vows in a small wooden chapel just outside the city. It was intimate, rustic, beautiful. She had believed it was real. Marta was a schoolteacher. She lived modestly in a tidy, 2-bedroom flat near the edge of Stryiski Park. She loved her students and dreamed of having children one day. Maxim had always said soon when she asked. "Let's just enjoy each other for now," he would whisper into her hair. She adored his voice, his hands, the way he made everything feel urgent and alive. He arrived every Thursday morning without fail. Left late Friday evening. Said he worked remotely on Mondays and Tuesdays, and traveled for business most weekends. Marta never doubted him. Until she did. One Thursday, he came late. His eyes tired. His shirt creased, something he never allowed. She noticed a faint perfume on his coat, not her own. A note of something floral and expensive. Had to switch trains, he'd explained, loosening his tie. Terrible delay. A woman spilled coffee on me in the dining car. Can you believe that? He laughed. She tried to laugh with him. But her stomach churned. The next day, while folding laundry, she found a receipt in his jacket pocket. It was from a hotel in Odesa, a romantic package. The date was from the previous weekend. The name on the reservation said Mr. and Mrs. Dovzhenko. Mrs. Dovzhenko. Diana Kuznetsova had learned early that emotions were weaknesses if left unchecked. She wore power like perfume, subtle but unmistakable. Her life was about numbers, projections, risk. Maxim had been her only true indulgence. He'd swept into her world with a grin that cut through her walls like a hot knife through ice. A chance meeting at a consulting event. A well-practiced line. A dinner that turned into a weekend. A year later, marriage on a yacht off the coast of Yalta. She believed he was a man as ambitious as she was. He let her lead when she wanted, challenged her when she needed. It felt like destiny. But lately, his messages had grown short. His visits precisely timed. One weekend, he cancelled last minute claiming food poisoning, but she later saw tagged photos of him at a wine bar in Kyiv on that same night. She said nothing at first. Instead, she hired a private investigator. Diana never did anything halfway. It took 3 days for the report to land in her inbox. She opened it with a glass of Chardonnay in hand, prepared to prove herself wrong. She wasn't. The file contained names. Photos. Schedules. 3 women. 1 man. 3 identical rings. She laughed. A long, bitter laugh that echoed across her marble kitchen. Then she picked up her phone. Not to call Maxim. To call the other 2 women. Alicia didn't sleep that night. She stared at the note on Maxim's tablet, reading the initials over and over like some secret code carved into her reality. Kyiv. Lviv, Odesa. A. P. Alicia Pavlenko. M. S. Marta Sinkovic. D. K. Diana Kuznetsova. The facts fell into place like shattered glass cutting her fingers as she tried to pick them up. Her hands trembled, but her resolve stiffened. She wasn't the type to scream or cry. She was an architect, trained to build, analyze, deconstruct, and rebuild again. So she did what came naturally. She started digging. It didn't take long. Social media was a ruthless friend. Through tagged photos, travel logs, and public registries, Alicia found Marta first. Her wedding photo looked eerily similar to Alicia's own, even the bouquet was nearly identical. And then she found Diana. Diana's LinkedIn profile was as sharp as her bone structure. Executive consultant. Speaker. Strategist. Mrs. Dovzhenko. 3 wives. 1 man. She thought of confronting him alone. But he was a performer, he'd spin it, fake tears, beg forgiveness. So instead, she chose something more powerful. She called Diana. Is this some kind of joke? Diana's voice was flat, calculated, her tone a loaded gun. I wish it were. But I think we both know it isn't. There was silence. Then, come to Odessa. Saturday. We'll meet. All three of us. The cafe in Odessa was quiet, tucked away from the usual tourist flow. Coastal breeze slid through the open terrace as three women sat at one table, each with identical rings catching the same morning sun. None of them spoke for the first minute. Then Diana leaned forward. Let's confirm one thing. Your name? Alicia Pavlenko. Architect. Married to Maxim, 5 years. Marta Sinkovic, said the woman in the floral dress. Schoolteacher. 4 years. Diana took a breath. Diana Kuznetsova. Business consultant. 3.5 years. They looked at each other, each realizing they weren't crazy, paranoid, or alone. I thought I was his only wife, Marta whispered, voice cracking. He married me in a church. Alicia gave a sad smile. He married me at City Hall. With witnesses. Diana gave a low laugh. He married me on a yacht. No documents, just a ceremony. I paid for the champagne. There was silence again, but not cold. It was the silence of battle lines being drawn, not against each other, but together. He doesn't know we know, Alicia said. Not yet. Diana nodded. Then let's make sure he finds out, in a way he'll never forget. They planned for a week. Diana handled logistics. Alicia covered tech. Marta gathered personal details, love letters, receipts, everything that could expose his lies. They invited him to a fake business conference, one he couldn't resist. Diana baited the hook with a forged email from a luxury consulting firm in Odessa offering him a keynote speaking role on modern relationship management. He arrived in a tailored suit, grinning like the predator he was. When he walked onto the stage of the private hall, expecting applause, he got silence. In the front row sat Alicia. Marta. Diana. All wearing white. All staring. Maxim blinked. He stuttered. Then smiled again. Ladies, he said smoothly. I can explain. You won't need to, Alicia interrupted. A projector screen behind him lit up. Photos. Videos. Messages. Marriage documents. Calendar notes. Then, a clip of Maxim proposing to all three women, side by side. Synchronized. Identical. The audience wasn't full of strangers. It was their friends. Their families. His co-workers. Diana stepped up beside him, voice sharp as a scalpel. Maxim Dovzhenko, welcome to your final performance. Maxim disappeared after the confrontation. No dramatic apology. No confession. Just vanished, like smoke after fire. He deactivated his social media, quit his job at the tech firm in Kyiv, and withdrew all remaining funds from his accounts. The women had anticipated this. Each had already closed her emotional ledger long before his cowardly exit. But the real story began after he left. Alicia, ever composed, channeled her fury into creation. She designed a public art installation titled Reflections, a geometric structure in downtown Kyiv shaped like 3 intertwining circles. The placard read, "To the lies that shaped us, and the truths that rebuilt us." Visitors flocked to it. She was featured in magazines, praised for her emotional resilience and artistic innovation. In interviews, she never mentioned his name. Marta returned to her quiet life in Lviv. Her students greeted her with hugs and flowers, having seen her on the news. At first, she considered quitting, the shame had been unbearable. But something strange happened. Parents stopped her in the street not to judge, but to support. Women she'd never met thanked her for her strength. And one weekend, a man named Ivan, a widowed father of 2, brought her books she'd once lent his daughter. "I know what real love looks like," he said. "It's patience. Not performance." She invited him for tea. They began to rebuild, slowly, honestly. Diana, as expected, turned the experience into a brand. She launched a podcast, The Other Wives, where she interviewed people who had experienced betrayal, double lives, emotional manipulation. It went viral. Her episodes were fierce, intelligent, healing. She became a speaker at conferences about emotional intelligence, trauma recovery, and women's empowerment. In the final episode of Season 1, she closed with, "Sometimes, the man you think is your future ends up being the lesson that unlocks your real beginning." 1 year later, the 3 women met again, this time, not in a cafe filled with pain, but in a lakeside cottage in the Carpathians. They drank wine, shared stories, even laughed at the madness of it all. They brought their rings, the ones he had given them, and tossed them into the fire one by one. As the gold melted, Diana raised her glass. To truth. Marta added, to second chances. And Alicia whispered, to ourselves. The flames crackled. Outside, the wind carried their laughter across the dark, forgiving night.